Hey, I'm Andrew Newman, author and founder behind Conscious Bedtime Stories. And this is Sarah from Dandelion Seeds Positive Parenting. And we're here today to talk about the deeper meaning behind one particular story of the Conscious Bedtime Stories collection. And that story for today is, Sarah's got it, it's A Little Light. This was the very first story in the collection, and we want to go deeper into the meaning so that you as parents and families can get the most out of this, that you can get the connection that's just waiting here for you in the pages of this story, and get the lessons to help you with your parenting journey and your connection with your little ones. Sarah, you were saying, like, why this story today?
Yeah, I am so glad you wrote the story and the story exists because if we know anything about children in the world today, I don't care who they are, where they live, what their name is, there is a huge problem right now with childhood mental health. And even for the children who are seemingly doing really well during this mental health crisis, they know children who aren't doing well in the mental health crisis. And frankly, if we don't start empowering children to look within and find their light so they can shine it not only for themselves, but also for everyone around them, we're just going to keep putting band-aids on things. We're going to be checking in on how much homework do they have. Yes, that's important, but it's not going to solve everything. How many friends do they have? It's important, not going to solve everything. What we really need to do is help children from very, very young ages learn to look within and find the inner resourcing they need to be the light for themselves and for those around them.
This was the first book that I wrote because I had just really, as an adult in my early 30s, discovered this inner light in myself and the language around it. Nobody had held and offered this language for me. And I'm so grateful for discovering my path of personal development and training as a healer and therapeutically, because it began to give me this language that was missing. But until I had it, things really were a struggle. So, folks, kick your feet up. Come and join us for story time. And I want you to hear the cadence of how I read it. You're welcome to borrow that and try it out. The story starts, like every story in Conscious Stories, with the snuggle breathing meditation. And I'm going to take us through that and invite that to be part of your attunement and regulation and centering and focusing tools that you use with your little ones. You can, every story, every time. Let's jump into the story. A Little Light, and beautifully illustrated by Rosie Baluzzi, a dear friend of mine in Edinburgh, Scotland. Dedicated to all who heal. I find myself taking a breath just knowing this page is coming, like, oh. And so let's do the snuggle breathing together, Sarah.
That's great.
For me, my hand's going to go to my heart this time. It doesn't always, but that's what it feels right now. So breathing in, I breathe for me. I breathe for you. I breathe for us. And I breathe for all that's around us. Oh, there's more space in me already. It's like, that feels good.
It really does.
We kind of all synced up now. This is what I like about it. Once upon a time, there was a little light who intended to shine a rainbow so bright. He had a little body. It started to grow and learn all the things he needed to know. His little body seemed perfectly equipped with eyes and ears and hands and legs joined at the hips. But the bright light inside that intended to shine got clouded as he grew and was harder to find. Oh no. He learned all the things he needed to know. Some of them were wrong and blocked up his flow. The rainbow lost its colors. The path of light went skew. His perfect little body coughed and spluttered too. So they took him to the doctor to fix his broken bits. It helped out a little, but soon returned in fits. They took him to the therapist to fix his broken mind. He poked around a little, there was nothing broken to find. They took him to the church to fix his broken soul. They often looked at parts and forgot about the whole. They took him to a healer to see what she could find. Thankfully, the doctor, church, and therapist didn't mind. Working as a team seemed to do the trick. The little light grew brighter. He didn't feel so sick. These healers worked with love and balanced wholeness too. Body, mind, and soul considered to help the light shine through. Yay! So that's it. That's a very simple little story. It was my first story. I wrote it sitting, I didn't even know I was writing a story. I knew it was a journal. But then we started to find that it would be wonderful also if I could add a little activity page to the back of each book. And here it is. And this is the heart of where this story comes from in me, are these aspects of self that I was learning, that, wow, I've got this area where deep in my belly, where my essence and my light shines through. And then we hear this language of intentionality. And so here, this whole world of intentionality, I could breathe in saying, I intend to shine brightly. And then I can let go of any uncomfortable feelings, stretch my body, and I've got this physical dimension, this energetic dimension, and then all of these dimensions of self come in together to make up who I am and who you are and who your little ones are. Like, Sarah, what's resonant for you? What's touching you in the story?
All of it. I love the story so much. Now, I'm holding my physical copy of the book. And one thing that really stood out for me was they took him to the therapist to fix his broken mind. He poked around a little. There was nothing broken to find. That is such an important core message, because at some point, often for us as adults, we start to think of ourselves as broken. Something broke us. And the truth is, this is not a new belief. This is not, we wake up 35 years old one day and say, oops, I think I broke yesterday. These are the beliefs that form often during childhood. And if children can simply learn from the very, very beginning that they are not broken, they are whole, they are perfectly and wonderfully made and designed to be exactly who they are in their wholeness, in their goodness, in their fullness, and see themselves with compassion and gentleness, that grows an adult who says, there are things that are broken in the world, but I myself am not broken at all. And I can help the world to see how much fluidity and how much growth and compassion we can have when we are gentle, starting from the inside out. So for me, that's a really profound core message, that starting at the very earliest ages, children need to internalize they are not broken any more than anybody else on the planet is.
Right. And it's difficult for us as adults if we're still carrying inside of us some of our own beliefs about our brokenness. It becomes hard for us to model that and to teach it to our little ones. And this is the magic of story time, because here's a story that can come into your space, can remind you as mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, aunts and uncles, it can remind you of your inherent wholeness, whilst in the moment holding and modeling and being this teaching tool for our little ones before they even learn the script the wrong way. And this is what happens to the boy in the story. He learned some things wrong, and it blocks up his flow, and then he had to unlearn it. And I don't know who that's written about, but we all kind of do this. And these our negative beliefs get formed in the earliest years of life, because we're safety creating beings, and we do our best to create safety. And so there is a very sweet innocence in that. that again, hand on heart, I've got to look at myself on a daily basis as a mature adult man, and I've got to go, oh man, I'm a little unkind in that way, and I don't have to be like that anymore. I'm gonna bring the kindness, and I'm gonna remember the light that's inside me that wants to come through, that is already coming through, that I'm already here expressing this divine intention for my life. I didn't really, there's so much I didn't plan and didn't have control over, that's just like unfolding, and I get to be aligned with that intentionality and this beauty.
Absolutely, yes. And you touched on a really key point. Most of our called limiting beliefs, most of our false beliefs about ourselves are formed depending on whose data you look at, either between the ages of 2 and 7 or 2 and 9.
Mm.
And when we can spend our time even as adults unraveling those beliefs and finding what our truth is, there's a big difference between viewing ourselves as broken versus viewing ourselves as perfectly imperfect. I'm not saying that every human is perfect. I don't believe that for a second.
Mm.
But I believe that if we can accept our imperfections and love ourselves anyway, that's where the true concept of wholeness comes from. I can say, you know what? I do certain things wrong every single day, and I love myself anyway. I accept myself anyway. And from there comes my light that I can share with those around me. It's this gratitude and compassion, beautiful balance that we get to share.
Mm. So Sarah, from your insights as a parenting coach, how would you suggest parents work with this story?
I love that question. Stories, as you know, I love because they are one of the safest ways to engage, particularly about emotional topics with children. So some children are happy to be an open book emotionally, no reading pun intended. They're happy to talk about their feelings and what have you. However, the other 99% of the children say that feels too vulnerable. I don't really want to talk about my feelings, especially my big, tricky, hard feelings. So oftentimes, simply talking about this little guy right here and doing a little bit of a role play. I wonder what happened. You can ask your child questions like, why do you think he feels that way? What do you think it's like for him at school? What do you think it's like for him with his brother or his sister or his whoever? You can make up other elements
Mm.
that are similar enough to your own child's real life that it won't feel so emotionally intrusive to the child, and yet it's still familiar enough that you might get some insight when they start to share. Oh, you might hear your child say, oh I bet this child's teacher was mean to them. Well, that might be a clue to you as the adult that, I wonder if there's a problem with the teacher or perhaps a past teacher. You can get a lot of insight simply by the emotional safety of talking about a character that is not directly your child, as opposed to putting the child on the spot saying, do you ever believe things like that? Are you feeling dark and broken? Most
Mm.
kids are going to run like the wind if they get put.
Most adults will run like the wind. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think the indirect method is a really great way to really get some visibility into our children's hearts.
Right. So there are lovable characters in each of the Conscious Bedtime Stories collection. And here we have one, the first one, this little boy in this moment. And that's so helpful, Sarah. Thank you. That this just that third part, I had a little moment there of seeing a Mr. Rogers and the puppet, and how effective it is as a communication tool to be talking to a puppet, not to be talking to this big grown man. And it's kind of the same principle there of working with the character in the story. Thank you. I just also sat with this theme of brokenness that you mentioned. I want to give so much love to the parents listening, that you're the perfect parent for your little one. That nobody else could do this. This is the perfect relationship. I'm not saying you're perfect in your parenting. I'm saying as a person, you're the right person. And if you're here listening to this and you're engaged in this conversation, that's everything, because it says to me that you care enough to learn a little bit, to improve a little bit, and to find your way into skillful connection, knowing that you've always got the opportunity to do repair when it's like, that didn't go so well. Like this is everything. And so I really want to, from the outside, bless you on your parenting journey and go like, just keep going. This is great. You're doing wonderfully. And the last 20 minutes of your day, which might be when you do story time, they have this opportunity to open up so much and so much connection. You might have an agenda which is like, okay, we're going to sleep now. And then you go, okay, you start a story, and then you end up in a conversation like the one that Sarah's modeling here, where all of a sudden you're hearing about the teacher and about what it was like at school, and these imaginings of going, I wonder what it's like for this little boy at school. Why do you think he lost his light? And what do you think he could do to get it back? And are you connected to yours? And you're in a whole conversation. I will say that story opens that up, and I have real encouragement for you to anticipate those extensions of time that will happen, because the meaningful connection is so much more important than the agenda of lights out. And it's helping in ways I discuss in my TED talk, and why the last 20 minutes of the day matter. It's helping the metabolism and the digestion and the integration of the day for your little ones. Sarah, any final thoughts that you want to add about this story or about story time?
Oh, I just love what you said and really want to underscore not rushing bedtime. So many of us are honestly and legitimately exhausted at the end of the day, and we really just want everybody to go to bed, like you said. And when we slow down, when we take that time, there is really something sacred and special in the emotional safety we can build with our children during the sacred time. And they do tend to divulge so much more. I don't know if it's the safety of the lights being off. I don't know if it's, I want to delay bedtime a little bit more, whatever the reason. We often hear so much more in these 20 minutes than we do all day long. So keep them sacred whenever you can.
Yeah, and that tiredness that you come in with, your tiredness can also be transformed by connection at story time. And also that little piece of anxiety that I hear a lot of parents have about, am I a good enough parent? Well, when you get the sweet connection, which you might have been looking for moments of, but and all of a sudden it's there because of the story and because of the snuggle and because of the closeness and the lights being out and the atmosphere that you've created. That's nourishment for you, and and claim it, take it, enjoy it. It's satisfying. Then when you go and sit down and watch a show or kick back, maybe you got to do some more work, but you can do it feeling satisfied in your good parentingness of the day. Well, thank you for following along and joining us, and please check out the other movies of each of the stories, their deeper meaning, and what the characters can teach you and how they can support you on your parenting journey.